And today I'm going to continue the series for the October making stuff with the Bargain Bead Box. And in this tutorial I'll show you how to make this bracelet, and then in the third tutorial I will show you how to make this set. And this was just with all the rest of the beads that were left in the box after making the other pieces. The first video I made 2 necklaces and 2 pairs of earrings, and in this video I'm going to make these 2. Let me zoom in so that you can see. I'll put a link for the first video in the description box if you didn't get to see it. So those are the 2 projects that we are going to make with the October Bargain Bead Box. In the first video I opened the box and showed the beads and made a couple of projects, and now I'm continuing. It's just too much of a video to put it all on one. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I have another idea. I thought we would incorporate bead weaving into our designs today, making stuff with the Bargain Bead Box. So out of my own stash, I have added some 8-pound Fireline. This is the smoke color. And I'm going to start with about 5 feet on a size 10 or 12 beading needle. This is an English beading needle. We may have to add more because I'm probably going to have to sew through quite a bit to secure these beads because they're a little bit bigger, and these edges are a little bit rougher, so I'm going to sew through it a little bit more than usual. But what I'm going to use from the box itself is I'm going to use the 8x6 crystal rondelles, the denim color. And then I'm going to, and we don't have a whole lot, so I'm going to have to do some spacing in between. And I'm going to use the 4mm round steel beads that came in the box. I'm going to add from my own stash some 11/0 Toho beads, and these are nickel plate, and I got these at crystals.com. So everyone's going to ask me where I got my nickel plate Tohos. This is 11/0. That's where I got them. You can also try beta.com too. And then I'm going to use the leaf beads also from the box, the toggle clasp also. We're going to do a simple right angle weave pattern with this, I believe. I have something in mind. We're going to see how it works. So just hang in there with me. Remember, in these videos, I'm designing on the fly. Okay, so I've threaded onto my beading needle about 5 feet of thread. We'll probably need to extend our thread, and if we do, then I will put a link to a video that will show you how to do that in the drop-down menu underneath the video player in the description box. We're going to start this by picking up a rondelle and 11/0, a rondelle and 11/0, a rondelle and 11/0, a rondelle and an 11/0. Wow. Get that down there. And then we're just going to move, and this is what we have. 4 rondelles with 11/0s in between them. Start with your rondelle, end with your 11/0. Bring them down to the end of the thread. We're going to go ahead and leave ourselves a 6 to 8 inch tail, probably more than that, 8 to 12 inch tail for our clasping. And if you don't want to leave that much, you can always extend it later. But I'm going to go ahead and leave a fairly long tail because I'm designing on the fly and I'm not really sure, that's my 11/0, how I'm going to clasp it. So this is what it should look like. You should have an 11/0 here and a rondelle here. My 11/0 didn't drop. So what we're going to do is we're going to just tie these into a knot. So bring your working thread and your tail thread together and just pull them tight, making sure that your threads go between your needle, your beads, excuse me, and tie a knot. And I think I'm going to tie one more, just an overhand knot. And just make sure that the threads go down between this 11/0 and rondelle here. And then just kind of move your tail out of the way. And then we're going to sew through one more time. As we're sewing through, we're going to add a little embellishment to the 11-0 seed beads. So I've come through my rondelle. I'm going to come through this 11-0 right here. Get you a little closer. Hopefully the lighting is okay. I'm not in my studio, so things are quite a bit different on this particular video. I promise I'll be back in my studio soon, so kind of bear with me, okay? 3 11-0 seed beads. I'm coming out of this 11-0. We're going to go into the opposite side of this 11-0 and then into the next rondelle. Just like that. And pull these down. And then we're going to go into this 11-0 right here between the rondelles. And we're going to pick up 3 11-0 seed beads and do the exact same thing. We're coming out of this side of this 11-0. We're going to go into the opposite side of the 11-0 and the next rondelle. Pull these down, give them a tug, make sure they're nice and tight. If you don't have good tension on this, it's going to look really sloppy. So pick up 3 11-0 seed beads. Well, first let's go into the next 11-0. We're coming out of the rondelle, go into the 11-0, and then pick up 3 11-0s. Go into the opposite side of the 11-0 from which you're coming out and go into the rondelle behind it. Now we're where our tail is, so I'm just going to tuck it between my fingers, go into this 11-0 seed bead right here. And my knot kind of slid in there, so I have to kind of push it out. So I don't like to knot. However, this particular unit probably wouldn't stay together well enough if I did not. So now I'm going to pick up 3 11-0 seed beads. I'm coming out of this side. I'm going to go into the opposite side and the rondelle. Pull these down. And this is what you should have. Now I want you to go into, you're coming out of the rondelle, I want you to go into the 11-0 seed bead between the rondelles. Just the 11-0. And pull. Then you're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead. One of your 4mm round metal beads from the box. Let me show you. So pick up one of those. And these are sharp, so be careful how you pull your thread through. Just pull it straight through. You've got an 11-0, a 4mm round, and an 11-0. Of course, you don't have to use these metal ones. You could use anything 4mm round if you'd like, but I'm trying to stay with the box stuff. So I'm coming out of this 11-0 here. I'm going to cross over the middle here and go into the opposite 11-0 in the opposite side from which I'm coming out of this one. So just like this. And I can go ahead and pull through that rondelle behind it too. It's a little easier. And pull these down. And this is what you should have. Now, you're coming out of this rondelle. Go up into this 11-0 seed bead in the first little picot we made here. So you're just going to go directly into that side 11-0. This is the top, this is the side right there. Pull through. And now you're going to pick up one of your leaf beads. So we've got this metal leaf bead. Pick that up and pick up an 11-0 seed bead. You're going to drop the 11-0 and the leaf down to your piece, just like this. And then you are going to go around the 11-0. So you're not going to go back through it. You're just going to go through the leaf bead. And then you're going to go into the rondelle right next to the 11-0 you're coming out of. So just like this, and pull this down. And you've got one little leaf on there. Now we're going to sew around and come back over this way and put on another leaf. And the reason I'm coming all the way back around is because I feel like these units need a lot of strengthening. So I'm going to go ahead and incorporate my multiple passes of thread while I'm doing the next steps. So it's going to help strengthen the piece. So I'm coming through this 11-0 and this rondelle. Once you've come through this rondelle, then we're going to secure all of these units by sewing through the picots and then back through the rondelles. So what I mean by that is I'm coming through this rondelle right here. I am now going to come up into this side 11-0 here, and I will go into the top 11-0 also in the picot, just like this. This is going to secure these picots down, and as we add our embellishments, it's going to help keep them together. I felt like I had a thread there, but I don't. So then we're coming out of this top 11-0, we're now going to go down into this one and then into the rondelle. So I'm going just over the top in the little triangular shape and pull this one down. And then I'm going to go into the next 11-0, the side 11-0 here, and the top 11-0, just like this. Then I'll go down into this side 11-0 and into the rondelle, and then into the side 11-0 behind it. It's a little easier to pick up if you can go into it all at once here, like this. I'm just working my way around the unit, securing all these picots down. And then I'm going to go into the top 11-0 and the side and into the rondelle. And then let's go ahead and go into this rondelle, or this 11-0 right here. Whoops. Sorry about that. So I'm coming out of this 11-0 right here as I came through the rondelle. Now I'm going to pick up a leaf bead and an 11-0. Remember guys, I'm designing on the fly, so if it's not that graceful, that's why. Now I've got the leaf and the 11-0, and I'm going to drop them down to the piece. I'm going to go around the 11-0 into the leaf, and since we're coming out of this little 11-0, we are going to go into the rondelle this time. So we're going to go right into the rondelle right here and pull the leaf up. Now arrange them as you pull your thread so that they lay nicely like this. And now we're coming out of this little 11-0 right here. So what we're going to do is, let's see, how do I want to do this? Let's go ahead and insert our next unit here. Even though our tail is here, we can work it over later to this side. So I'm not too worried about that. Let's go into this 11-0 right here and up into the top 11-0. Okay, so now we're coming out of this 11-0 seed bead here. I thought I was going to rethink this, but I think it's going to be fine. Let's go ahead and make another unit of our rondelles. So you're coming out of this top picot here. You're going to pick up a rondelle, and you're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, and a rondelle, an 11-0, a rondelle, and an 11-0, and a rondelle. Now because we have a rondelle on here, or a 11-0 on here, we do not have to pick up another one. So this time, instead of having 4 11-0s and 4 rondelles, we'll have 4 rondelles and 3 11-0s. We start with a rondelle and end with a rondelle. We're going to go into the opposite side from which our thread is coming out. So we're coming out here, we're going to go into the other side, right here. And we are going to pull this thread through, just like this. Now we're going to sew all the way around and secure it. So we're going to sew through the rondelle and the 11-0 and pull this tight. Now, as we sew around, we're going to go ahead and put our picots on to make sure that as we're securing it, we also have our embellishment. So now we're going to pick up 3 11-0s. Make sure your unit is tight, pull your thread, and then you're coming out of this side of the 11-0, hold on to your unit with your thumb and your fingers, and go into the other side of the 11-0 and the rondelle behind it, just like this. Hold your unit together with your fingers and pull your thread nice and tight. Now go into the next 11-0, pull it tightly, and pick up 3 11-0s. Go into the opposite side from which you're coming out and go into the rondelle behind it, just like this. And pull. Go into the next 11-0 and do the same thing. Pick up 3 11-0s and go into the opposite side. Now, you have to go into the 11-0, we're coming out of this rondelle here, you have to go into the 11-0 that we originally attached to. Go ahead and go through it and go through the rondelle and the next 11-0 seed bead right there. And pull your thread through. And pull tightly. Make sure you have really good tension on these units or they're not going to work out well for you. Now you're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, a 4mm round metal bead, and an 11-0 seed bead. We're coming out of this side of this 11-0. We're going to cross over into the opposite 11-0 on the opposite side of the unit and go into the opposite side from which we're coming out here. So we're coming out here, we're going to go in here. And through the rondelle behind it. And pull your unit down. Okay, now we're going to put leaves on, but we're going to put them on. I'm hoping those are going to work out. Yeah, they'll be okay. We're going to put them on this side this time because we've got them coming out. This side, this over here, we're going to do it opposite on this side. So we're coming out of this rondelle here. Just sew up into the 11-0 seed bead. We're going to start our sewing around and securing things. So go up into the sidearm here, go into the 11-0 on the top, go into the 11-0 on the side, and down into the rondelle. And this is really going to be helpful to be using dark Fireline too, so you don't see the thread. Now we're going to go into, so I'm using smoke Fireline. We're going to come out of the rondelle up into the first 11-0 right here. See, do I want to go into the 11-0 yet? Yeah, it's okay. No, it isn't okay. Let's do this. Let's just come out of the rondelle. Remember, I'm designing as we do this. Don't get mad at me. So we're just coming out of the rondelle. we're going to pick up an 11, or pick up our leaf bead and an 11-0, just like this, and we're going to drop it down to the work right here. Then we're going to go around the 11-0 back into the leaf, and then into the 11-0, right next to the rondelle we're coming out of. Pull this down. And now we have to sew into the 11-0 between the two rondelles here. So this 11-0 towards the back here. Get you close. So I pulled my leaf down, and I went into the 11-0 and then into the 11-0 right down here between the beads. Now I'm going to come up into the 11-0 on this side right here. Make sure everything is nice and tight. Arrange your leaf, and you're coming out of this 11-0. Now pick up another leaf bead and an 11-0. We're going to set this down and drop this leaf down. Then I'm going to go around the 11-0, back into the leaf bead, and then into the rondelle right here. Straighten out my leaves so they look nice. They're going to move a little, they're going to turn a little, and that's okay. That'll be a little bit of movement, kind of like a charm, and that's okay. But you don't want them loose, you don't want any slack. And then we're going to go, we're coming out of this rondelle, we have to go into the 11-0 here and the rondelle behind it. So right in between the two units here. Gosh, I hope my lighting is okay. In my viewer, it looks really dark. But let's see, right into here and into the rondelle behind it if I can. Yep. And pull through. And that's what that should look like. Now we're coming out of this rondelle. We're going to go over to this unit, and I think because we don't have very many rondelles, we're kind of limited on the beads we have, I'm going to do a spacer type unit in between, and then we'll do 2 more units like this. And then that should give us some more room if we do a spacer in between every 2 units. It will also make it easier to kind of wrap around your wrist. So we're coming out of this rondelle here. Let's go into this one and the rondelle behind it. Now we're going to come up into this 11-0 seed bead right here. So from the rondelle into the side 11-0 seed bead, and then into the top 11-0 here. Now we are going to pick up, let's see, how do I want to do this? Let's pick up a 4mm round, an 11-0, and a 4mm round. Now this is going to be kind of thready, so we're going to have to sew through it and tighten it quite a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into the opposite side of the 11-0 we're coming out of. And this is what it should look like. Now we have to secure this a couple of times, especially since these beads are kind of sharp. So I'm coming out of this 11-0, I'm going to go back into this 4mm round right here. Let me back off just a little bit. And then into this 11-0 here. Let's see if I can get some more light here. And then get this one closer too. And then we are going to go all the way around this 4mm round here. So we're just going all the way around again. into this 11/0 seed bead, back into this 4mm round, and then into this 11/0 seed bead. Now we're going to have to make another picot on here so that we can start our units again. So pick up 3 11/0 seed beads, go into the opposite side, pull them down, and then sew around all 3 of these beads you just put on. Okay, so now I'm in the connecting bead here. I have to sew all the way around to this one up here. So I'm all the way around 2 beads. Wow, far. Anyway, let's go up here and into this one. And this is what you should have so far. And just arrange it and make sure everything looks good. That's how that should look. Now we're going to add another unit of these on this extension here. So we're going to pick up a rondelle and 11/0, a rondelle and 11/0, a rondelle and 11/0, and a rondelle. 4 rondelles, 3 11/0s. The 11/0s dividing the rondelles. Start with the rondelle, end with a rondelle, and then go back into the opposite side of the 11/0 we are attaching to. So the opposite side the thread is coming out of, right here. And pull. Pull these up around. Now they're very loose, so we have to sew around them and make our picots as we do that. If you want to, you can just go ahead and sew around all 4 of them. Let's do that just to make it easier. Since this is a beginner's channel, let's go ahead and just sew around all 4 of them. You can do it like I showed you on the previous unit, or you can do it this way. We'll just secure them. Okay. Lots of different sounds and interruptions today. It's just a different place. Then we're going to continue sewing around here. So we're just sewing all the way around. So I've gone through all the beads and the connecting bead here, and now I'll sew around and start putting on my picots. It just makes it a little bit easier so things aren't moving around too much as you do that. So you can certainly do that, or you can put your picots on as you go around. Now we've got an extra pass of thread basically, so we're just going to pull through, and then we're going to pick up 3 11/0 seed beads, go into the opposite side, and pull them down, and then into this one, and go into the opposite side of this 11/0, just like we've been doing. Go into this 11/0 and pick up 3 and then we're just going to go from this rondelle into this 11/0 here, and then into the rondelle behind it. Now sew into the side arm of this 11/0, actually don't do that, just go into the middle 11/0. We'll secure that as we go around on our next pass. And then you're going to pick up an 11/0, a 4mm round, and 11/0. We're coming out of this 11/0 here on this side. We're going to find the opposite 11-0, go into the opposite side, and the rondelle behind it. Now we're going to do the sewing up through the picots. So you're coming out of this rondelle here. You're going to go into the side arm of this unit and then into the top bead. It's best to do one at a time so they keep their nice shape. So now go into this one here. Then we're going to go down into this one and the rondelle behind it. Just the rondelle. Now go up into the side arm of the picot, which is just a little unit of right angle weave, and then go into here. Down into here on the side arm, into the rondelle. Now, this one's a little different because we have to attach these too, so we have to go up into this one here. It's the same thing, it's just that it happens to be attached to the 4mm round. So go into the side arm, get you close, go into the side arm, go into the top bead that's connected to the 4mm rounds, then go down into the side arm, and come through the rondelle behind it, right there. Pick up an 11-0 seed bead, or no, excuse me, do not pick up an 11-0 seed bead. Pick up your leaf, and then pick up an 11-0 seed bead, go around the 11-0 seed bead, and then you can come into, well, let's just go around it and pull this up. And then we're going to go into this 11-0 side arm here. So from the rondelle, through the leaf, up around the seed bead, up into this side arm 11-0, into the middle 11-0 here, between the rondelles, down into this 11-0 here, pick up a leaf, drop it down, pick up an 11-0, drop it down, go around the 11-0 into the leaf and then into the rondelle, right behind the 11-0 you're coming out of. Now, all your picots should be attached to all your rondelles, and you have your leaf just like this. Come up through this particular bead, and if you need to extend your Fireline like I do, then this would be a good time to do it because you can do it when you're passing through your big beads. So let me go ahead and extend my Fireline. Now, this is going to be really long, so I'm going to go off camera and do that. But you will find a link on how to do that if you do not know how in the description box below. I'll make sure that I post one to a video that shows you how to do that. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and extend my Fireline. I'm going to make another unit exactly like this, and then I'm going to make the extension unit just like I showed you here, and I'm going to continue making my units and with the extension in between. Make sure that when you make this one, you put your leaves on the opposite side. So we'll put it on this side, put it on the opposite side, and I'm going to continue until I have, so I have gone as far as I could go, so I have 8 units. And with my 2 together and then a spacer in between. Now you could I only have 4 beads left, and because I'm making double units, that's not going to work. Of course, you could do a single unit with this spacer in between each unit too if you'd like to do that. But because I designed it this way, I'm kind of stuck with it this way. So I have exactly 6 inches here, and I need a little over 7. I will get about an inch with my clasping, but because of the thickness of the beads and the bulk on the wrist, I need it to be just a little bit bigger than that. So what I've done is I finished my last unit and then did my little extension here, and I'm going to make one more extension, and then on this side with my tail I'll sew up through, make an extension, and put the round side of the clasp here. On this side where I have 2 extensions, I'll put the straight end of the toggle here, which will give more room for it to slide through the round side, and will be functioning correctly and will look good too. So let's see if I get enough by doing that. So what I've done is I've done my very last unit, and then I've done the extension here that I showed you how to do, and now I'm just going to go up into that extension. I have sewn around it a couple of times to secure it, and now I'm just going to pick up another one of my 4mm round steel beads, and then an 11/0, and then another 4mm round, just like this. I'm going to go through this 11/0 here, pull this down so it's another little extension unit, and I'm going to sew through it twice because this is going to connect to my clasping. I want it to be very very firm, very strong, plus the edges of the metal beads can be sharp and cut your thread, so you just want to put as much through it as you can. Fireline is strong, but it can still cut, of course. So we just want to make sure that it's really secure. So I'm just sewing through it a couple of times just to make sure, and I did the same with this unit here too, just to make sure everything is going to work out well here. And then I have to devise a way to put my clasping on. So okay, so I'm going to sew up to this 11/0 now that I've secured that quite a bit. I'm going to come up to here, and I've got to figure out a way to get this clasp on. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up an 11/0, and then I'm going to pick up another 11/0. So I've got 2 11/0s. I'm going to drop them down, and then I'm going to go through my clasping. This has a really wide loop here. You may want to consider a smaller one, different clasp, but this is the one that came in the box, so I'm going to do this. We could use a 4mm round, however, this is right where the clasp is going to move, and with the sharp ends, it may be a little too much. And then if we put a rondelle, it's going to be too wide. So we're just going to go back through this. We're coming through the clasp. We're going to go back through the first 11/0 seed bead, and just the first one. Let me get you closer. Hoping the lighting is okay here. Let's go through just the first 11/0. We have 2 on there. I'm going to hold on to it and pull my thread down here. Then I'm going to pick up another 11/0 seed bead, and I'm going to go back into the one I'm connecting in on the opposite side from which I started. So right here. If I can get through it. There we go. You pull this all out, and I'll show you what it looks like. Like I said, this is really a wide loop, so this is what it looks like so far. I'm going to sew back up through this one 11/0. That made it a little awkward. And then up through this 11/0 and through the loop. Down around the loop of the toggle into the 11/0 on top here, and then into the one on this side, and then into this one. And we're going to do that a couple of times so that we can make sure that we have a lot of strength right here. down into there. I'm pulling my toggle tight against it, so it's getting a little hard to go into, but it can be done, so I'll just do it. Okay, and then into this 11-0 here. You can do that as many times as you want, whatever makes you feel secure. And then right where we're coming out, there's a thread bridge right here. I'm going to tie a knot on that thread bridge. And then I'm going to go down into my unit, so into the 4mm here, and into this 11-0 between the two units here. And I just go back up around this one, tie a knot right here on this thread bridge between the beads. So I'm just going under the thread between the beads here, pulling my needle up through, going through the loop that I've created and making a knot. And back through this 11-0 if I can get back through it again. And now I want to sew down into this unit down here. So ouch, stab yourself. And see if I can get down into this 11-0 here, in between the rondelles, and then I'm just going to poke through the back of this 11-0. So I'm going to go through it and through the back if I can, like this. See if I can come through there. That might not be an angle I can come through. Yep. And I'm going to turn it over, and you can see that it's coming out the back here. I can cut it down a little. I don't have my thread zapper, so I'm just going to burn this with a lighter and call it good. And then that's how that side is going to look. Then we're going to move over to this side where we've left our long tail. Go ahead and put your needle on the tail, and we'll come back and I'll show you how to work your way up here, and then we will just do the same thing on this side. So I've put my needle on, and you can see that we are coming out of this bead right here between the rondelles. So I'm just going to go from the back side and go up through the rondelle, and then up through this side arm of this unit right here, and then up into the top bead of the unit. Just like that. Now we are going to go ahead and make a unit with our 4mm steel. So I'm going to pick up a 4mm, boop, maybe, and then an 11-0, and then a 4mm, and then I'm going to go into the opposite side of the 11-0 I'm coming out of and just make another unit like this. And I'm hoping I left enough thread. I think I did. I'm only making one of these, but I'm going to sew through it twice. So I'm going to go back through all these beads, even though it's arguing with me. I will win. So, showing camera here. It's very odd not being in my own space that I'm used to working in. Things just aren't going so well. So I apologize if this video is weird. Okay, now I'm coming out of this here after securing. You can secure again if you want, if you have more thread than I have, whatever. Then I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, 2 of them actually, and drop them down. And then I'm going to pick up my toggle, and again this is a really wide toggle, If you want to use something smaller, that would work. However, you want it to have pretty good diameter to get your length on this bracelet, since we only had a limited amount of beads to work with. Go through the toggle. Go through the first 11/0 seed bead, not the second, like that, just the first one. Pull your thread through. Bring this down like this. And then we need to pick up another 11/0. We started on this side, so we're going to go through this side, bring in an 11/0 into the mix here, straighten everything out, and that's what that looks like. And go ahead and sew through that 2 or 3 times, sew down, tie off like I showed you on the other end, and we'll come back and see how long it is and what it looks like. Now if you need more length than is provided with the amount of beads, like I said, you could make 1 unit each with the extension in between, or you could make a couple more extensions on either side of this also. And look at that, I got enough length. It actually is a little bit more length than I actually needed, but it's okay. It works well, it feels good because it's wide and it's bulky this way. It needed to be a little bit longer anyway, and because of the bulkiness of the toggle, I got a little bit more length than I thought I was going to get even. So I was able to, even though we only had a 7-inch strand of these rondelles, I was able to make an actual bead weaving project, which is almost unheard of. And with me anyway, I use a bunch of beads usually when I do a weaving project. So let's see. Let's put this on the ruler. And back off. Oop, nope, that's the wrong way. I got a 7.5-inch bracelet off of that. So you want to measure halfway through the round end of the toggle and to the end of this one. So I got a 7.5-inch bracelet, which is really good. And that's perfect. So that's what that looks like. I think that turned out really pretty. A little bit different, and it would be really good for a Christmas bracelet if you were to use red and green or something. You could use any kind of check leaf that had a vertical hole through it. It doesn't have to be these metal beads. You don't have to use any of these particular beads. You could use anything you have in your stash, as long as you had a 6x8 rondelle and a little check leaf or whatever. And you don't have to put the leaves on either. You could just make a basic flowery looking right angle weave with the little units in between, and that would be pretty too. So anyway, that's another project. Okay, so I have decided, off camera I was kind of playing around with these links and the big crystals here, and I have decided to add some leather cording. This is 1mm leather cording, and I'm using the white one here, and I've cut 12 inches of it. You're going to need to have several lengths of it, so make sure you have several feet of leather. I am designing on the fly, so I can't tell you exactly how much at this point, but I will as this goes on. So I start with my links by having 12 inches available. It's just easier to work with that much. There is a little waste, but it's easier to work that way. And I'll retain what I don't use for the ends of my bracelet if possible. I'm also going to use a couple crimp ends, cord crimp ends. These are the type of crimps that you can put on and then squeeze the middle. It's big enough that both of my 1mm cords fit in here. So it's probably like a 2.5mm cord crimp. Or you could use an end like these where you just put your cords in and crimp them down. You can use your mighty crimper or a pair of chain nose pliers, flat nose pliers, whatever you'd like. I'm also going to use some of the little 4mm round steel beads, a couple jump rings, and a toggle clasp. Okay, to start this project, just take your piece of leather and push it through the front of the link. So it's not double-sided, so just make sure your flower is on the top. Push your leather cord through and then bend it over, keeping about 1.5 inches out so that you can wrap around it. Hold this link and the leather between your forefinger and your thumb. Stick your forefinger out a little bit here, and then grab your long cord. And towards the front of your finger, wrap once, and then go towards your thumb and wrap another time, like this. Gently slide the leather forward and push your cord, your long cord, through the loops you just made, just like that, and pull them. Now arrange it where you want it, sliding these loops that you made up, and pull the long cord to tighten, just like that. And you get a little tiny barrel knot right there. And you can just tighten it and push it up towards your link. And we do have some waste, but without having enough to hold on to, it's difficult to tie that knot. So you can make it a little shorter if you'd like, but you want to make sure that this piece doesn't slide out as you're trying to tie your knot. And then tighten it up as much as you can, make it look the way you want it to look, and then cut. A pair of scissors or your end cutters, and cut as close to the knot as you can and cut that piece off. Then I've got a little jeweler's glue. You can use hypo cement, you can use GS hypo, you can use whatever you like. I like this Aleene's jewelry glue, and I'm just going to put a little bit on the knot right here. And then I'm going to set it aside for a minute or two and let it dry. Okay, so now this is dried for a couple of minutes, and I've just slid on a 4mm round and one of my crystals and another 4mm round onto my leather cording. And the beads fit fine, so they should slide right onto your 1mm leather cording. And then just go from the top down with your leather. So make sure you have your flower up. Pull your leather through. Make sure this one is up also, just so that you have everything the right direction. Bring this all the way down towards your beads here, leaving just a little bit of slack between the bead and the link so that you can tie your knot. Then bend this over, and you're not going to have a lot of room to tie this knot, so hold it together like this, and then bring the cord around towards the top of your finger, and then wrap it towards your thumb twice, just like that. Slide it slightly off your finger, bringing your long cord around, and go through the 2 loops you just created. Pull that long piece and slowly slide out your finger out and pull the long piece of leather, trying to keep your beads on one side and your knot on the other, and pull it together the best you can. And then I'm just going to turn it towards the back and tighten it a little, and then look at the front and tighten it a little bit. Push it up towards my link more than my beads, because your beads can slide around in the middle a little bit, but you want it to be basically the same. You want your links to move, but you don't want them to be one big loop here or one small loop here and one big loop here. You want it to be basically the same. Tighten your knot, get it looking good, and that's what you should have, just like that. Get you a little closer so you can see. Now I can turn this over. I'm going to tighten this knot a little bit more just to make sure that it's not going to slide around. And see if this one looks like this one, because I made one previously just to see if it would work. And like I said, you can have a little bit of slack in between here. And they look close enough. They're not exact, and they're not going to ever be exact, but they're pretty good. So now I can clip off this one. Make sure that's tight. It just doesn't look tight. There we go. And clip this here. And get my glue. Put it on my knot. If you have GS Hypo Cement, it would help to stick the little hypodermic portion, the little syringe portion up into the knot, but my GS Hypo Cement is hard as a rock, it's not working, so I'm using this, and I like this cement anyway, so I'm going to leave it just up like this so the glue doesn't get all over my bead mat any more than it already has, and let that dry for a few minutes. And we'll be back. Okay, because I made a previous link already, I'm going to join the two together. But you can just do one at a time. So you would take another one of your links and put it here and just join like I'm going to join, and then do another one. But I'm going to join these two together here. So same process as before. I'm going to keep this little piece of leather that's left over from my last one because I can use it for my ends. And I'm just going to measure another 12 inches. And straighten out my leather. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring my leather through the back like this. Of course, I cut that to where it won't slide through, so I'm going to fix this. And I'm going to keep like an inch out, inch and a half, like this, and do the same thing. I'm just going to hold it between my thumb and my finger, and then on this finger here, towards the top of my finger, I'm going to wrap once, and then I'm going to move back towards my thumb and wrap again, and towards the back here, I'm going to slide this off my finger a little bit and just push my leather through, making sure you don't slide off this guy either. Move your loops you made up towards your and then pull the long piece. Now it can get rather loose and you can still retrieve it. That's why I'm just continuing this one. Even though I kind of lost control, I can gather it back together and I can kind of turn it the way I want to, and then as you pull this long thread, you'll tighten that knot. So you can turn it the way you want it. You can put it right where you want it, and then you can pull on that long one again and just keep adjusting it until it looks pretty good, like this. Make sure that it will move in your link, but you want it pretty close to the link, just like that. Make sure you're close enough to see what's going on here. And then I'm going to adjust this a little more and cut off that short piece. The prettiest part of my knot is in the back, darn it. Oh well. These don't have to be perfect. A lot of times I'll fuss and fuss with them to try to make them perfect, but these really don't need to be. This is just kind of a rustic looking thing. So I'm going to then cut a lot closer than that. And then grab my glue and get it all over my bead mat. And just put a little bit right on that knot. Turn it to where it's not going to touch my bead mat here. And let it dry for a minute or two. Okay, now that I've done that, I can go ahead and slide on my beads. And then I will just come through the top. Bend this down and tie another knot, just like I've been showing you. Okay, so I went ahead and finished my knot and glued it and let it dry. Now, I was going to use my leftover leather and make some ends and put some crimps on them and then put on my findings. However, I have almost 7 inches of length already. Let's see. Just almost, real close. So if I did that, my bracelet would be too big for me. Now, if you have a bigger wrist, you could go ahead and put a couple pieces of leather on, tie another knot, and then put your crimp ends on, and then put your findings on, and your clasp, if you have a bigger wrist. Now, if I did that, it would be much too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to not worry about the crimp ends, these little guys, and I'm just going to pick up a jump ring and open it, and I'm going to put it onto my neck bracelet and put my findings directly on my jump rings. I might decide to use smaller jump rings. Let me see, these are kind of big, but I'm just going to open it from side to side, just like that. Slide it on. And then I'm going to put on the round side of my toggle here and close it. And I may decide that I want a smaller jump ring. Let me see, let me close it here. And I have a small clasp too. I could use a bigger clasp too to get a little bit more length if I need it. Or if you need it, you can do that too. You can also put 2 links on this side if you'd like. It helps slide through a little bit better. Let's see how this works though. And moment of truth here. Let me back off just a little bit. You see my messy bead pad. I have everything in the world on it. And see if I can do this one-handed gracefully, because I never can, but let's see. And I may need 2 small jump rings on that side to make it a little easier, but it does go through, and that is what it looks like. Kind of cute. So these are the 2 that we've made in part 2 here. And I hope you enjoyed it and you'll make one or the other. And just know that this necklace is all the rest of the beads that were in the box. I used pretty much everything in this month's box. I mixed them all together. I added a few of my own things, some pearls and just a few things, and put all the beads together on these with a little shank button and some S-long cord. I am going to do an entire tutorial dedicated to this technique. I will show this necklace in that tutorial, but I did not make this one on video, so I will make a whole nother one with other beads and show you the exact process. So I hope you tune into that one, and just know that if you have the box, you can make this exactly the same way. Just put your beads in a big conglomeration and follow the next tutorial. Bye-bye.